In the summer of 2001, an exhibition of the greatest sports photographs of the 20th century was displayed in the Luxembourg Gardens in Paris. 100 images were on display, from Alain Prost to Zinedine Zidane. Yet every evening, crowds gathered around just one photograph. They stood in hushed silence, as if before a religious icon. The photograph showed two men on bicycles, elbow to elbow, locked in combat on the slopes of an extinct volcano. Their names were Jacques Anquetil and Raymond Poulidor. In July 1964, France divided itself into two, not by politics, not by region, but by a question, whispered in cafés, argued over in barbershops. Are you Anquetiliste or Poulidoriste? On one side stood Jacques Anquetil, four-time Tour winner, ice-cold tactician, master of the stopwatch. He rode as if cycling were a mathematical equation. They called him Maître Jacques, and Monsieur Chrono. On the other stood Raymond Poulidor, the farmer's son from the Limousin. Open, generous, attacking. He suffered in public. He made effort visible, and the public loved him for it. They called him Poupou, and he was theirs. By 1964, Anquetil had already conquered the Tour 4 times. Poulidor had not won it once, but this year felt different. Poulidor arrived fresh from victory at the Vuelta, España. Anquetil had won the Giro d'Italia little more than a fortnight earlier. He was now in pursuit of the historic Giro Tour double. The 1964 Tour de France covered 4,504 kilometres. It was chaotic, controversial, and decided by the smallest of margins. And for the first time, it was also being broadcast live on French television.
Et c'est parti pour le sprint final. Regardez Poulidor qui rattrape Anquetil. Quel effort incroyable. Allez, allez.
The entire nation was watching. Poulidor's fight to be a real Tour contender began in earnest on stage 9 to Monaco. The finish came on the track, 2 laps of it. Poulidor was perfectly placed, but he launched his sprint at the bell, believing it to be the finish. Anquetil waited and took the real sprint and the time bonuses that came with it. Stage 10 was a time trial. Anquetil won, of course. Monsieur Chrono extended his lead over Poulidor. After 13 stages, Poulidor trailed Anquetil by just 31 seconds. France leaned forward. Then came the rest day in Andorra. Instead of a quiet recovery, Anquetil attended a méchoui, a lamb roast, organised by Radio Andorra. There was wine, there was lamb, there were photographs of the race leader, looking far too relaxed for a man attempting the Giro Tour double. The next day was stage 14, Andorra to Toulouse. The race climbed the Porte d'Envalira, the highest paved road in the Pyrenees, and on its slopes, Anquetil cracked. He was dropped whilst Poulidor attacked. At one point, Anquetil was 5, perhaps 6 minutes down. But Anquetil was not a rider of emotion. He was a rider of calculation. He descended through thick fog with extraordinary control. He clawed back the time. He found rhythm and rejoined the leaders. By the finish in Toulouse, the drama of the summit had inverted itself. Poulidor had not gained time. He had lost 2 minutes and 36 seconds. As Anquetil arrived with the front group, and Poulidor entered Toulouse on the wrong side of a split peloton. The overall gap between the two men opened from 31 seconds to more than 3 minutes, with Anquetil now sitting in second place overall, 1 minute and 26 seconds behind the yellow jersey of Georges Broussard. The race seemed to be turning away from Poulidor once more, but the Tour was not finished. In the Pyrenees, Poulidor began to chip away. He attacked. He forced Anquetil to defend the gap he had over him. He rode with urgency. Stage by stage, the deficit between Anquetil and Poulidor shrank. 3 minutes became 2, 2 became 1. By the time the race left the mountains on stage 16 from Luchon to Pau, Poulidor was only 9 seconds behind a third place Anquetil. Then came the Béarn time trial, 32.6 kilometres. This was Anquetil's kingdom. Poulidor punctured. The bike change wasn't great. Seconds slipped away. Anquetil gained 37 seconds and the yellow jersey. Poulidor was now 56 seconds behind Anquetil, and only one decisive battleground remained. The final mountain test, the Puy de Dôme. Sunday, the 12th of July 1964. 500,000 spectators lined the slopes of the dormant volcano. There were no barriers, no space, just a human corridor rising into the sky. The climb averaged 11%. In places, it touched 13%. Ahead, the pure climbers Jimenez and the Hamontes fought for the stage win. But behind them came the true race, Anquetil et Poulidor, alone together, the Tour de France between them. Anquetil made a decision that defied logic. Instead of sitting on Poulidor's wheel, he drew level, elbow to elbow, side by side. For 2 kilometres, they climbed as one. They did not look at each other, they did not speak. They heard only each other's breathing. They felt only wool against wool. The crowd pressed so close that the riders brushed shoulders with spectators. A pressed motorbike edged too near. Its exhaust burned Poulidor's leg. In that moment, photographer Roger Krieger captured the image that would define French sport for that generation. 2 rivals, touching elbows, suspended in shared agony. Race director Jacques Anquetil wrote, "Their breath, their sweat, and the wool of their jerseys mixed." With 900 metres remaining, Poulidor attacked. Anquetil faltered. For maybe only the second time in the race, he looked vulnerable. Jimenez won the stage. Poulidor crossed the line third. 42 seconds later, a hollow-eyed Anquetil dragged himself across the summit. Anquetil's director sportif, Raphael Geminiani, told him the verdict. He had kept the yellow jersey by 14 seconds. "That is 30 more than I need," Anquetil replied. The tour was not yet finished. There was still a time trial to come, 27.5 kilometres around Paris. At the first time check, Poulidor was faster. Hope again flickered. Then Anquetil asserted himself. He won the stage and secured his 5th and final Tour de France victory. The final margin between the two men, 55 seconds. The smallest at that time in Tour history. Poulidor would stand on the Tour podium 8 times, but he would never wear yellow. Anquetil and Poulidor only became friends after retirement, and as Anquetil lay dying from stomach cancer in 1987, he had one final message for his great rival. "Once again, my friend, you will be second to me." And that photograph, those elbows, that suffering, that shared breath, would outlive them both. A reminder that sometimes the smallest margins create the biggest legend. Poulidor died in 2019, aged 83. Poulidor's grandson, Mathieu van der Poel, would go on to wear the yellow jersey in the 2021 Tour de France. In an emotional interview, when asked who he was thinking of as he crossed the line, Mathieu just managed to say, "My granddad, of course," before breaking down in tears. A true testament of how much it meant to him. Chapeau, Raymond, and chapeau, Jacques.